September 8th, 2017. Pensacola, Florida. 33-year-old Taylor Wright kissed her girlfriend goodbye and walked out the door for what should have been a routine day. She was going to meet up with her best friend, Ashley McArthur, a former crime scene technician. They had plans to go horseback riding, maybe grab some food, and most importantly, go to the bank. Taylor needed to withdraw $34,000. Money she'd entrusted to Ashley for safekeeping. Money she desperately needed for an upcoming court date in her bitter divorce battle. But Taylor Wright never came home that day. She never made it to the bank. And she would never see her young son again. Because the woman she trusted most, the friend she confided in, the person who promised to protect her money, had already spent it. And when Taylor came asking for it back, Ashley McArthur made a decision that would shock an entire community. She decided murder was easier than telling the truth. Welcome to Dark True Crime. I'm about to take you through one of the most disturbing cases of betrayal you'll ever hear. A former police officer turned private investigator, killed by her best friend, buried on a family farm, and covered in concrete. This is the story of how greed, lies, and desperation turned friendship into murder. And before we go any further, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now. We dive deep into the darkest true crime cases every single week. Cases that will leave you questioning everyone around you. Turn on those notifications because you don't want to miss what's coming. Now let's talk about Taylor Wright. Taylor wasn't just any victim. She was a fighter. Born and raised in South Carolina, she'd built a career protecting and serving others. She worked as a police officer for the Jacksonville Police Department in North Carolina from 2008 to 2009, and then again from 2012 to 2013. Deputy Chief Timothy Malfitano would later describe her as a brave and spirited young officer who they were proud to have on their team. After leaving law enforcement, Taylor transitioned into private investigation work. She knew how criminals operated. She understood evidence, forensics, and how to solve cases. Ironically, those same skills would later be used by investigators to solve her own murder. But by 2017, Taylor's personal life was falling apart. She was going through a nasty divorce from her husband, Jeff Wright. The couple had been together for over a decade and shared a son named Drake, who was about 7 years old when his mother disappeared. By all accounts, Taylor adored her son. Jeff himself admitted that she was an ideal mother who devoted everything to caring for Drake. But their marriage crumbled after they moved to Florida. On their 10th wedding anniversary, during what was supposed to be a romantic dinner, Jeff announced he wanted a divorce. According to Jeff, Taylor was the one who said she didn't want to be with him anymore. But Taylor's best friend claimed Taylor felt blindsided and betrayed by Jeff's decision. Either way, the divorce turned ugly fast. They fought over custody of Drake. They fought over money. The tension got so bad that during one heated argument, Jeff called the police and Taylor was arrested for battery. And then there was the money, $100,000, that Taylor withdrew from a joint bank account she shared with Jeff. Legally, it was a disputed fund during the divorce proceedings, and a judge had ordered Taylor to bring $25,000 in cash to an upcoming court hearing. She was also behind on child support payments. The pressure was mounting, and Taylor was feeling it. So she did what a lot of people do when they're scared their ex-spouse might take everything. She hid the money. She split it up between different friends, people she trusted to keep it safe until she needed it for court. And one of those friends was Ashley McArthur. Ashley McArthur wasn't just any friend. She was a former crime scene investigator. She understood how evidence worked, how investigations unfolded, how to cover tracks. She and Taylor had become close friends, and when Taylor asked Ashley to hold on to $34,000, Ashley agreed without hesitation. She told Taylor she'd put the money in a safety deposit box, and whenever Taylor needed it, they'd go to the bank together and get it out. Simple, safe. What could go wrong? Except Ashley McArthur was lying. She never put that money in a safety deposit box. Instead, she deposited the entire $34,000 into her own personal bank account. And then she started spending it. You see, Ashley had her own financial problems. Her family owned a jukebox rental business, and over the previous 2 years, Ashley had been skimming thousands of dollars from those jukeboxes. She was in debt. She was struggling. And suddenly, she had $34,000 of someone else's money sitting in her account, just waiting to be used. So she used it. She paid off credit cards. She bought extravagant gifts. And here's the most twisted part. She bought a motorcycle for a man named Brandon Beatty, someone she was having a secret affair with. $34,000 that belonged to Taylor, spent on a lover Taylor didn't even know existed. In the weeks leading up to September 8th, 2017, Taylor had been asking Ashley repeatedly to go to the bank so she could get her money back. She needed it for court. She needed it for child support. She needed it desperately. But every time Taylor asked, Ashley made excuses. She was busy. The bank was closed. They'd go tomorrow, next week, soon. Taylor was getting suspicious. And on September 8th, she wasn't taking no for an answer anymore. That morning, Taylor woke up in the home she now shared with her girlfriend, Casandra Waller. The two had met on a dating app after Taylor's divorce and had recently moved in together. Their relationship wasn't perfect. They had their issues like any couple, but Casandra cared deeply about Taylor. She could see the stress Taylor was under with the divorce, the court date looming, and the constant pressure to produce that money. Taylor and Casandra texted back and forth that morning. Normal, everyday conversation. The last text Casandra received from Taylor was at 11:20 a.m. After that, silence. According to Ashley's story, she picked Taylor up that morning and they spent the day together. They drove to various locations and eventually they went to a family farm in Milton, Florida to go horseback riding. Ashley claimed Taylor was stressed and emotional, breaking down in tears twice during the day. She said they were trying to calm Taylor's nerves to give her a break from all the pressure she was under. And then, Ashley claimed, around 4:30 p.m., Taylor left her house alone. She ordered an Uber to take her downtown to a bar. She wanted to have a beer, clear her head, and be alone for a while. That was Ashley's story. Taylor left. She went to a bar. She was fine when she left. But here's the problem with that story. There was no Uber. No driver ever picked up Taylor Wright. No bar in the area had any record of her being there. Taylor's car was still parked in Casandra's driveway. All of her personal belongings, her wallet, her identification, everything was still at home. And then just before 8 p.m., Cassandra received a text message from Taylor's phone. It read, "I'll call you later. I'm not angry with you and I should have called, but I just needed to think. I am trying to get my life organized and on track." Cassandra stared at that message and something felt wrong. The language didn't sound like Taylor. The phrasing was off. Taylor always communicated in a specific way, and this text didn't match her style. Plus, Taylor had missed a planned birthday dinner for Cassandra. There's no way Taylor would just disappear without telling anyone, especially on Cassandra's birthday. Cassandra tried calling Taylor. No answer. She tried texting. Nothing. Hours turned into days, and still no word from Taylor. Cassandra was terrified. She reached out to Taylor's ex-husband, Jeff, to see if he'd heard from her. He hadn't. In fact, their son Drake had also been trying to reach his mother with no response. Jeff told Cassandra something disturbing. He warned her to be careful because Taylor might get angry with her for involving other people in her business. That warning sent chills down Cassandra's spine. What did Jeff know? Was he involved? Was Taylor in danger? After a week of silence, Cassandra filed a missing persons report with the Pensacola Police Department. Investigators immediately began looking into Taylor's disappearance, and the first person they wanted to talk to was Ashley McArthur, the last known person to see Taylor alive. Ashley was cooperative, maybe a little too cooperative. She told investigators the same story she'd told everyone else. Taylor was stressed. They went horseback riding. Taylor left in an Uber to go get a beer downtown. She seemed fine when she left. Public Information Officer Mike Wood spoke to the media and said, "We believe she left on her own accord at this point. We want to hear from her, to let us know she's okay." But Taylor's loved ones weren't buying it. Her former colleague, Sergeant Brad Braithwaite, said, "When they said she was missing, I knew that wasn't like Taylor to not contact her family or her friends. Taylor always used to like to talk to people, so I knew there was something wrong." Everyone who knew Taylor agreed. She would never just disappear without telling her son, her girlfriend, or her family where she was. Something terrible had happened. Investigators started digging deeper. They looked at Ashley's phone records. They examined her financial records. And what they found was shocking. Ashley McArthur had been cashing forged checks. She'd been involved in financial fraud related to her family's jukebox business. And most importantly, that $34,000 Taylor had given her for safekeeping, it was gone, spent. Ashley had used every penny. Suddenly, investigators realized they weren't just dealing with a missing person case. They were dealing with a woman who had a motive to make Taylor Wright disappear. Let me ask you something. If your friend asked you to hold on to their money and you spent it, what would you do? Would you confess? Would you try to pay it back? Or would you do what Ashley McArthur did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because what happens next in this case is beyond comprehension. As investigators closed in on Ashley, she stopped cooperating. She lawyered up. She refused to answer any more questions. And for weeks, the case went cold. Taylor was still missing. No body, no evidence, no answers. Until October 19, 2017. Investigators obtained a search warrant for a property owned by Ashley McArthur's family. It was a farm in a remote wooded area on Britt Road in North Pensacola. The same farm where Ashley claimed she and Taylor had gone horseback riding on the day Taylor disappeared. Officers, cadaver dogs, and forensic teams descended on the property. They searched the barns, the fields, and the wooded areas surrounding the farm. And within 2 hours of beginning their search, they found something that would change everything. A clandestine grave, hidden on the edge of the property, covered with concrete and potting soil. Inside that grave was the body of a woman. She'd been shot in the back of the head, execution style. Her body had been wrapped in a hammock, an attempt to conceal and contain her remains. Dental records confirmed what everyone already feared. It was Taylor Wright. The private investigator, the former police officer, the mother, the daughter, the girlfriend was dead, murdered, and buried like trash on a piece of property owned by her best friend's family. Bridget Jensen, the lead prosecutor assigned to the case, later said, "My gut told me at that point that it was going to be Taylor." The news devastated Taylor's loved ones. Casandra Waller told investigators, "I couldn't believe it. I lost it. It was hard. It was emotional." That same night, October 19, 2017, Ashley McArthur was arrested at her home and charged with first-degree premeditated murder. When detectives brought her in for questioning, Ashley maintained her innocence. She denied everything. She claimed she had nothing to do with Taylor's death. She insisted she had no idea how Taylor's body ended up on her family's farm. But the evidence told a different story. The very next day after Taylor disappeared, September 9, 2017, security footage from a local Home Depot showed Ashley McArthur purchasing concrete and potting soil, the exact materials used to bury Taylor's body. Ashley had shot her best friend in the back of the head, wrapped her body in a hammock, buried her in a shallow grave, and covered her with concrete and potting soil to hide the evidence. And she did it all because she didn't want to admit she'd stolen $34,000. But here's where this case gets even darker. Because Ashley didn't just kill Taylor to cover up theft. She had been planning it for weeks, maybe even months. And the method she originally wanted to use was so twisted, so calculated, that it would shock everyone involved in the case. Investigators discovered that Ashley had been telling people, multiple people, about her plans to kill Taylor Wright. And she wasn't subtle about it. One of Ashley's friends, a local bartender named Audrey Warren, testified during the trial about conversations she'd had with Ashley in the weeks leading up to Taylor's murder. And what Audrey said on that witness stand was chilling. According to Audrey, Ashley had told her she was going to poison Taylor with cocaine. She planned to mix it into Taylor's beer when they were out together. Ashley had said, "This world would be better if Taylor wasn't here. She's not a good person." But Ashley was worried. Taylor was small, but she was tough. She'd been a cop. She knew how to defend herself. So Ashley added, "She's too small to hurt anybody, so I just shoot them." And that's exactly what she did. Ashley McArthur lured her best friend to a remote farm under the guise of going horseback riding and spending the day together. At some point during that day, when Taylor's guard was down, when she trusted Ashley completely, Ashley pulled out a gun and shot Taylor in the back of her head. One shot. Execution style. No struggle. No chance to defend herself. Taylor Wright, the former cop who'd spent her career solving crimes and protecting people, never saw it coming because the person who killed her was someone she trusted with her life and with her money. Ashley then used Taylor's phone to send text messages to Casandra, making it look like Taylor was still alive. She created a narrative that Taylor had left on her own, that she was stressed and needed time to think. Ashley knew exactly how to manipulate a crime scene and control a narrative. After all, she was a former crime scene technician. But Ashley made mistakes, and those mistakes would ultimately lead to her downfall. Now, you might be thinking this is where the story ends. Ashley gets arrested, goes to trial, and justice is served. But you'd be wrong. Because what happened during Ashley McArthur's trial, the evidence presented, the witnesses who testified, and the verdict that was handed down is a story that deserves to be told in full. And trust me, you're not going to believe some of the things that came out during that trial. Ashley McArthur sat in a jail cell, charged with first-degree premeditated murder. The former crime scene technician, the woman who understood how investigations worked, the friend who'd promised to protect Taylor Wright's money, was now facing life in prison. But Ashley wasn't going down without a fight. While she awaited trial for murder, prosecutors hit her with additional charges. Remember that jukebox business her family owned? Investigators discovered that for 2 years leading up to Taylor's murder, Ashley had been systematically stealing from that business. She'd been skimming thousands of dollars from jukeboxes rented to various bars across the area. She was charged with racketeering and organized fraud. And in a separate trial, before her murder trial even began, Ashley McArthur was found guilty on those charges. She was sentenced to 7 years in prison for fraud and racketeering. But that was nothing compared to what she was about to face. Taylor Wright's murder trial began 2 years after her body was discovered. 2 years of Casandra Waller grieving the loss of the woman she loved. 2 years of Taylor's son Drake growing up without his mother. 2 years of Taylor's family demanding justice. And finally, in 2019, Ashley McArthur would face a jury of her peers. Before we dive into the trial, let me remind you to smash that like button if you're finding this case as shocking as I am. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We bring you the most compelling true crime cases every week. Stories that will stay with you long after you've finished watching. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Now let's talk about the prosecution's case. Lead prosecutor Bridget Jensen knew she had a challenge ahead of her. This was a circumstantial case. There was no murder weapon, no witnesses to the actual killing, no confession. Ashley had maintained her innocence from the moment she was arrested, and her defense attorney, John Barosset, made it clear they would strenuously oppose all allegations. In his opening statement, Barosset told the jury, "There will be no physical evidence introduced in this trial to show you that Ashley McArthur had anything to do with the death of Taylor Wright." He wasn't wrong. The gun used to kill Taylor was never found. There was no DNA evidence linking Ashley to the murder scene, no fingerprints, no blood spatter. Ashley had been meticulous in covering her tracks. But Bridget Jensen wasn't worried, because she had something more powerful than physical evidence. She had motive, opportunity, and a mountain of circumstantial evidence that painted a crystal clear picture of what happened to Taylor Wright. Jensen stood before the jury and laid it out simply. Ladies and gentlemen, Ashley McArthur had a motive. Ashley McArthur had the opportunity. Ashley McArthur murdered Taylor Wright, and then she tried to cover it up with lies, concrete, and potting soil. Let's break down the prosecution's case piece by piece. The motive, money. Taylor Wright had entrusted Ashley with $34,000. That money was supposed to be kept in a safety deposit box, untouched, until Taylor needed it for her court date. But Ashley never put it in a safety deposit box. She deposited it into her own account and spent every penny. Prosecutors presented bank records showing that Ashley used Taylor's money to pay off credit cards, cover personal expenses, and most shockingly, to buy a motorcycle for Brandon Beatty, a man she was having an affair with. When Taylor started demanding her money back, Ashley panicked. She couldn't return it because she'd already spent it. She couldn't admit what she'd done because Taylor would have reported her to police, and Ashley was already under investigation for embezzlement from the jukebox business. Ashley had painted herself into a corner, and her solution? Murder. The opportunity. The farm. On September 8, 2017, Ashley lured Taylor to her family's farm in Milton, Florida, under the pretense of going horseback riding. It was a remote location, private property, no witnesses, no security cameras, the perfect place to commit murder. Ashley knew that farm intimately. She knew every inch of the property. She knew where to hide a body where it wouldn't be easily found, and that's exactly what she did. The cover-up, concrete and lies. The day after Taylor disappeared, September 9th, security footage from Home Depot showed Ashley purchasing concrete and potting soil. Prosecutors argued that Ashley used those materials to bury Taylor's body and make it harder for investigators to find her. But Ashley didn't just try to hide the body. She tried to hide Taylor's entire disappearance. Using Taylor's phone, Ashley sent text messages to Casandra Waller, making it seem like Taylor had left on her own and needed time to think. Ashley created an entire narrative designed to throw investigators off her trail. And it almost worked. The confession, witnesses come forward. Perhaps the most damning evidence against Ashley came from her own mouth. Multiple witnesses testified that Ashley had talked openly about wanting to kill Taylor Wright. Audrey Warren, the bartender, took the stand and testified about conversations she'd had with Ashley. She told the jury that Ashley had said, "This world would be better if Taylor wasn't here. She's not a good person." Ashley had told Audrey she planned to poison Taylor by mixing cocaine into her beer. And when she worried that might not work, she said she'd just shoot her instead. Other witnesses came forward with similar stories. Ashley hadn't kept her plans secret. She'd bragged about them. She'd talked about them casually, as if murdering her best friend was no big deal. Think about that for a second. Ashley McArthur was so confident, so arrogant, that she told multiple people she was planning to kill Taylor Wright. And then she actually did it. The interrogation? 6 hours of lies. One of the most powerful pieces of evidence the prosecution presented was Ashley's police interrogation. 6 full hours of video footage showing Ashley being questioned by detectives about Taylor's disappearance. Bridget Jensen made the strategic decision to play the entire interrogation for the jury. She wanted them to see Ashley's demeanor, her body language, the way she changed her story as the interview progressed. And what the jury saw was revealing. In the first interview, shortly after Taylor was reported missing, Ashley was flirty and playful with the detectives, according to Jensen. She smiled, she joked, she seemed completely unconcerned about her missing best friend. Ashley told detectives that she'd spent the day with Taylor, that they'd gone horseback riding, and that Taylor had left in an Uber to go downtown. She insisted Taylor was fine when she left. She even speculated that Taylor was probably just off somewhere doing what Taylor does, implying that Taylor had a history of disappearing without warning. But in the second interview, after investigators started closing in on evidence that contradicted her story, Ashley's demeanor changed completely. She became defensive, nervous. Her answers became shorter, more guarded. She realized the detectives didn't believe her. Jensen told reporters after the trial, "I think that was important because the jury got to see Ashley. If you look at the first interview, she was flirty, maybe a little playful with law enforcement. In the second interview, her demeanor was different. I think she knew she was caught." During one particularly bizarre moment in the interrogation, a detective asked Ashley if Taylor had ever come on to her romantically. Ashley replied, "Taylor asked me one time to have a threesome with her and some guy, and I was like, no, thank you." It was a strange, unnecessary detail that seemed designed to paint Taylor in a negative light, to make it seem like Taylor was unstable, promiscuous, unpredictable. Ashley was trying to create reasonable doubt by suggesting Taylor was the kind of person who might just disappear on her own. But the jury wasn't buying it. The defense blamed the mental health there. Ashley's defense attorney, John Barosset, knew he had an uphill battle. He couldn't dispute the financial motive. He couldn't explain away the Home Depot footage of Ashley buying concrete the day after Taylor disappeared. He couldn't dismiss the witnesses who testified that Ashley had talked about killing Taylor. So he did what a lot of defense attorneys do in cases like this. He tried to shift blame and create doubt about Taylor's mental state. Barrowset argued that Taylor was under immense stress. She was going through a bitter divorce. She was facing a court date where she'd have to produce money she didn't have. She was using drugs, according to some rumors. Maybe, Barrowset suggested, Taylor's death wasn't murder at all. Maybe she'd taken her own life. Maybe someone else had killed her and Ashley was being framed. He questioned Taylor's mental stability at the time of her disappearance, suggesting that she was erratic, emotional, and potentially suicidal. But that argument fell apart under scrutiny. Taylor's loved ones testified that while she was stressed, she was not suicidal. She was a fighter. She was making plans for the future. She was focused on getting custody of her son and moving forward with her life. And most importantly, people who die by suicide don't typically shoot themselves in the back of the head, bury themselves in a shallow grave, and cover themselves with concrete. The defense had nothing, no credible alternative theory, no evidence pointing to anyone else, no explanation for why Taylor's body was found on Ashley's family's property. Now, I want to ask you something. Put yourself on that jury for a moment. You've heard the financial motive. You've seen the security footage of Ashley buying concrete the day after Taylor disappeared. You've heard multiple witnesses testify that Ashley talked about killing Taylor. You've watched 6 hours of Ashley lying to detectives. What would your verdict be? Guilty or not guilty? Drop your answer in the comments below. Because after just a few hours of deliberation, the jury reached their verdict. Guilty. Ashley McArthur was convicted of first-degree premeditated murder in the death of Taylor Wright. The courtroom erupted. Casandra Waller broke down in tears. Taylor's family embraced each other, finally feeling like justice had been served after 2 long years of waiting. Casandra later told reporters, "We got the verdict we had been waiting for 2 years. We finally got the justice that Taylor deserved." But the pain of Ashley's betrayal would never fully heal. Casandra said, "I never saw it coming, and that's what's scary. She knew what she did, and the whole entire time, she was pretending to be my friend. Ashley took somebody that I loved." The judge sentenced Ashley McArthur to life in prison with a mandatory minimum of 25 years before she would be eligible for parole. At 41 years old, Ashley would spend the rest of her life behind bars for murdering her best friend over $34,000. But here's where the story takes an interesting turn. Because Ashley McArthur wasn't done fighting. Even after being convicted and sentenced, she continued to maintain her innocence. And she tried to get her conviction overturned. Ashley filed appeals, arguing that her trial was unfair, that the evidence against her was insufficient, that she deserved a new trial. Her legal team worked tirelessly to find any technicality, any procedural error, anything that could get her conviction thrown out. But every single appeal was denied. The courts reviewed the case and determined that the trial had been fair, the evidence had been overwhelming, and the verdict was just. Ashley McArthur would remain in prison for the rest of her life. And here's something that really stands out about this case. Ashley has never shown remorse. Not once. She's never apologized to Taylor's family. She's never admitted what she did. She's never expressed any guilt or regret for taking the life of a woman who trusted her completely. That level of cold-bloodedness, that complete lack of empathy, is what makes this case so disturbing. Ashley didn't just kill her best friend. She killed her without hesitation, without regret, and then she tried to lie her way out of it. Before we move to the final part of this story, I need you to do something for me. Share this video. Taylor Wright's story deserves to be heard. Her family deserves for people to know what happened to her. Hit that share button, post it on your social media, send it to your true crime friends. Let's make sure Taylor's memory lives on and that people understand the devastating consequences of betrayal and greed. Now let's talk about the aftermath of this case, the impact it had on Taylor's loved ones, and the lessons we can all learn from this tragedy. Life in prison. That's where Ashley McArthur will spend the rest of her days. Behind bars, no freedom, no second chances. All because she decided that $34,000 was worth more than her best friend's life. But for Taylor Wright's loved ones, Ashley's conviction didn't bring Taylor back. It didn't erase the pain. It didn't undo the trauma of losing someone they loved in such a horrific, senseless way. Let's talk about the people Taylor left behind and how this case changed their lives forever. Casandra Waller. The girlfriend who never gave up, Casandra Waller, lost the woman she loved. She and Taylor had just moved in together. They were building a life, making plans for the future. And then, in an instant, it was all ripped away. But Cassandra didn't just lose Taylor. She also lost the illusion of safety. Because for weeks after Taylor disappeared, Cassandra was talking to Ashley McArthur every single day. Ashley was helping her search for Taylor. Ashley was comforting her. Ashley was pretending to be a concerned friend, and the entire time, Ashley knew exactly where Taylor was, because she was the one who'd killed her. Cassandra told reporters after the trial, "I never saw it coming, and that's what's scary. She knew what she did, and the whole entire time, she was pretending to be my friend." Imagine the psychological torment of that. Imagine grieving with someone, trusting someone, confiding in someone, only to discover that person is the reason your loved one is dead. Cassandra had to testify during the trial. She had to relive the pain of Taylor's disappearance, the text messages that didn't sound like Taylor, the birthday dinner Taylor never showed up for. She had to sit in a courtroom and listen to the details of how Taylor was murdered and buried. But Cassandra showed incredible strength. She fought for justice. She cooperated with investigators. She never stopped pushing for answers. And when the verdict came down, she felt a sense of relief, even though the pain would never fully go away. Cassandra said, "We got the verdict we had been waiting for 2 years. We finally got the justice that Taylor deserved." Today, Cassandra continues to honor Taylor's memory. She speaks about the case when asked, keeping Taylor's story alive and reminding people that domestic violence and betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. Drake Wright, the son who lost his mother. Taylor's son, Drake, was just 7 or 8 years old when his mother disappeared. He'd been trying to reach her, calling and texting with no response. He didn't understand why his mom wasn't answering, why she missed their calls, why she wasn't coming to see him. And then he had to learn the unthinkable. His mother had been murdered by someone she trusted, someone who was supposed to be her friend. Losing a parent at any age is devastating, but losing a parent to murder, especially at such a young age, leaves scars that never fully heal. Drake lost not just his mother, but his sense of security, his innocence, and his trust in the world. We don't know much about Drake today because his privacy has been protected, as it should be. But we can only hope that he's surrounded by family who love him, who remind him of how much his mother adored him, and who help him process the trauma of what happened. Taylor's loved ones have said that Drake was the center of Taylor's world. She fought for custody of him. She worked hard to provide for him. She wanted nothing more than to be a good mother. And Ashley McArthur took that away from him. The ex-husband, Taylor's ex-husband, Jeff Wright, also had to grapple with her death, even though their relationship had been contentious. Despite their bitter divorce, Jeff acknowledged that Taylor was an ideal mother who loved Drake deeply. When Taylor first went missing, some people suspected Jeff might have been involved. After all, they were in the middle of a nasty divorce. Taylor had taken $100,000 from their joint account. They were battling over custody. Jeff had even warned Cassandra to be careful because Taylor might get angry about involving the police. But investigators quickly cleared Jeff of any involvement. He had an alibi. There was no evidence linking him to Taylor's disappearance. He was not the killer. Still, Jeff had to live with the fact that the mother of his child, the woman he'd once loved, had been murdered, and he had to help his son navigate that grief and trauma. The broader community, trust shattered. This case didn't just affect Taylor's immediate family. It sent shockwaves through the entire Pensacola community. Taylor had been a police officer. She'd served and protected that community. People knew her, respected her. And when news broke that she'd been murdered by her best friend, it shattered people's sense of trust. If a former cop, a trained investigator, someone who understood danger and knew how to protect herself, could be murdered by someone she trusted, then who was safe? Bridget Jensen, the prosecutor, said after the trial that she hoped the case would serve as a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones closest to us, the people we trust. the people we confide in, the people we let into our lives. Let me ask you something, and I really want you to think about this. How well do you really know the people you trust? Your best friend, your coworker, your neighbor. Do you know their financial situation? Do you know what they're capable of when they're desperate? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this case forces all of us to confront some uncomfortable truths about trust and betrayal. The lessons, what we can learn from Taylor's case. Taylor Wright's murder is a tragedy that should never have happened. But if we're going to honor her memory, we need to learn from it. Here are some critical lessons this case teaches us. 1. Be careful who you trust with your money. Taylor made the mistake of entrusting a significant amount of money to someone without any legal documentation or safeguards. She gave Ashley $34,000 with nothing more than a verbal agreement that Ashley would keep it safe. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you need to hide assets or have someone hold money for you, do it legally. Use a lawyer. Set up a trust. Get everything in writing. Don't rely on verbal promises, no matter how much you trust someone. 2. Financial desperation can make people dangerous. Ashley McArthur was drowning in debt. She'd been embezzling from her family's business. She was involved in fraud. And when Taylor gave her $34,000, Ashley saw it as a lifeline, not a responsibility. When people are desperate for money, they can become unpredictable and dangerous. Ashley wasn't a violent person before this. She had no history of assault or murder. But financial desperation combined with greed pushed her to commit the unthinkable. If someone you've trusted with money suddenly starts making excuses, avoiding you, or acting strangely when you ask for it back, don't ignore those red flags. Document everything. Involve authorities if necessary. Your safety is more important than avoiding confrontation. Number 3. Trust your instincts. Casandra Waller knew something was wrong the moment she received that text message from Taylor's phone. The language was off. The tone didn't match. Her gut told her Taylor didn't write that message. And she was right. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Don't ignore your instincts. Don't talk yourself out of what your gut is telling you. Cassandra's instincts led her to file that missing persons report, which ultimately led to the investigation that brought Taylor's killer to justice. 4. The people closest to you can be the most dangerous. This is perhaps the most disturbing lesson of all. Ashley McArthur wasn't a stranger. She wasn't some random criminal who crossed paths with Taylor. She was Taylor's best friend, someone Taylor confided in, someone Taylor trusted with her life. Statistics show that most murder victims knew their killer. It's rarely the stranger in the dark alley. It's the partner, the friend, the family member, the person you least expect. That doesn't mean you should live in paranoia, but it does mean you should pay attention to warning signs. If someone's behavior changes dramatically, if they become evasive or manipulative, if they start showing signs of financial desperation or moral compromise, don't ignore it. 5. Former law enforcement and forensic professionals can use their knowledge for evil. Ashley McArthur was a former crime scene technician. She understood evidence. She knew how investigations worked. She knew how to cover her tracks. And she used all of that knowledge to try to get away with murder. She shot Taylor in the back of the head, wrapped her body in a hammock, buried her in a remote location, covered the grave with concrete and potting soil, and used Taylor's phone to create a false narrative. These were all calculated moves designed to hide the crime. The only reason Ashley got caught was because investigators were thorough, because they followed the money trail, and because Ashley made critical mistakes like buying the concrete the very next day and telling multiple people about her plan to kill Taylor. The investigation, how police solved the case. Let's take a moment to appreciate the work that went into solving this case. Because it wasn't easy. Taylor's body had been deliberately hidden. The murder weapon was never found. There were no witnesses to the actual killing. This could have easily become another unsolved cold case. But investigators did several things right. First, they followed the money. When they discovered that Ashley had deposited Taylor's $34,000 into her own account and spent it all, they immediately had a motive. Financial records don't lie. And Ashley's spending spree in the weeks before Taylor's disappearance painted a clear picture. Second, they obtained surveillance footage. That Home Depot video of Ashley buying concrete and potting soil the day after Taylor disappeared was crucial evidence. It directly contradicted Ashley's story that Taylor had left alive. Third, they brought in cadaver dogs. When they searched the farm, they didn't just walk around hoping to stumble upon something. They used trained dogs who could detect human remains, and those dogs led them straight to Taylor's grave. Fourth, they conducted thorough interrogations. Those 6 hours of recorded interviews with Ashley gave prosecutors invaluable insight into her lies, her demeanor, and her consciousness of guilt. And fifth, they built a circumstantial case that was so strong, so comprehensive, that even without a murder weapon or eyewitnesses, the jury had no doubt about Ashley's guilt. This case is a testament to good police work, to detectives who didn't give up, to investigators who followed every lead, to forensic teams who processed every piece of evidence. They got justice for Taylor Wright. Where is Ashley McArthur today? As of October 2025, Ashley McArthur is serving her life sentence at a Florida state prison. She's currently 66 years old, and unless something extraordinary happens, she will die behind bars. She's appealed her conviction multiple times, and every appeal has been denied. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and the courts have consistently ruled that she received a fair trial and that justice was properly served. Ashley has never publicly admitted to killing Taylor. She's never apologized to Taylor's family. She's never shown any remorse. Even now, years after her conviction, she maintains that she's innocent. But the facts speak for themselves. The jury spoke. Justice was served. Remembering Taylor Wright. In all of this darkness, in all of this talk about murder and betrayal and legal proceedings, it's easy to lose sight of the person at the center of this story. Taylor Wright was more than just a victim. She was more than just a case number or a headline. Taylor was a daughter, a mother, a girlfriend, a friend to many people who genuinely cared about her. She was a police officer who dedicated her career to protecting others. She was a private investigator who helped people solve problems and find answers. People who knew Taylor described her as brave, spirited, and devoted. She had a bright smile and an infectious personality. She loved her son more than anything in the world. She was trying to rebuild her life after a difficult divorce, and she was doing her best to navigate an incredibly stressful situation. Taylor deserved better than what Ashley McArthur gave her. She deserved loyalty, honesty, and friendship. Instead, she got betrayal, lies, and a bullet to the back of her head. But Taylor's story doesn't end in that shallow grave on Britt Road. It lives on in the people who loved her. In her son, who carries her memory with him every day. In Casandra, who fought for justice. In the investigators who refused to let her case go cold. In the prosecutors who made sure Ashley McArthur would never hurt anyone else. And now, Taylor's story lives on in you. By watching this video, by learning about her case, by sharing it with others, you're ensuring that Taylor Wright is not forgotten. You're honoring her memory and keeping her legacy alive. Final thoughts. The case of Taylor Wright is one of the most heartbreaking examples of betrayal I've ever covered on this channel. It's a reminder that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a friend, someone you trust, someone you'd never suspect. Ashley McArthur had every opportunity to do the right thing. When she spent Taylor's money, she could have confessed. She could have worked out a payment plan. She could have been honest. But instead, she chose murder. She chose to end a life rather than face the consequences of her own actions. And now she's paying the price. Life in prison. No freedom. No future outside of prison walls. All because of greed and cowardice. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you for sticking with me through this difficult case. Before you go, I need you to do 3 things. First, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We cover cases like this every week, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Second, leave a comment and tell me what you think about Ashley McArthur's sentence. Is life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years enough, or should she have received a harsher sentence? And third, share this video. Taylor's story deserves to be told, and the more people who know about it, the better. Thank you for watching Dark True Crime. This is a case that will stay with me for a long time, and I hope it's reminded you to cherish the people you love, to be careful who you trust, and to never take your safety for granted. Justice for Taylor Wright. Always. Rest in peace, Taylor. You deserved so much better.